you don't have a visibility problem. You have a shrinking problem. And I know you might not know exactly what I mean, but I'm going to explain. So stay with me because this could shift your entire marketing plan and make it easier and better. So you want more clients. Let's say 6 new clients in the next 90 days. Sound good? You want to walk into a room, give a talk or run a workshop, have a real conversation at a networking event, and then walk out from any of those experiences with 2 or 3 people who want to work with you. Not just one nice little chat and a let's stay in touch. But here's what keeps happening. You do the things. You show up, you do all of the right things, and then you still aren't getting enough interest. Conversation requests, engagements, or people saying, tell me more, and leaning in. It can be so frustrating. So today I'm going to walk you through what I call the permission to ask system, a system that shows you how to stop shrinking consciously or subconsciously and exactly how to use it to sign 6 new clients in the next 90 days from the rooms you're already walking into. And it's a simple 3-part shift and it is so good. So stay with me all the way to the end because part 1 is the piece almost everyone skips, and it's the one that makes the other 2 parts actually work. Now, if you're anything like the women I work with, here's how your weeks tend to go. You're doing the talks, you're running the workshops, you're networking, you're posting faithfully week after week. You want to walk out of that networking event with interest, with meetings booked. You want people DMing you from those social media posts. You want to walk off that speaking stage or out of the front of that speaking room, having closed 30, 40, or even 50% of that room, when right now you're maybe only closing 10 or 20% of the room. But you're just not getting enough people booking conversations or saying, tell me more, or actually asking how to work with you. And it's so frustrating. And here's the lie we have been sold about how to get more clients. We've been told that the answer is more visibility, more followers, more content, more platforms, more posting, more funnels, more leads at the top. That if you could just be everywhere all at once, if you could just get in front of enough people, the clients would finally come. So you chase more, you add another platform, you post more often, you sign up for the program that promises a bigger audience. But that simply doesn't work the way you thought it would. Because all of those things are focused on getting more eyes on you. And more eyes on you does not help when you aren't letting people see the true you. When you're being quiet, not really telling your stories, not owning your space, and not showing up with passion. As a result, you can come off as ordinary, like everyone else, and in the worst cases, maybe even boring. In fact, more visibility when you're showing up like this is like trying to blow up a balloon with holes in it. You can keep blowing and blowing more air in, but the holes are going to keep it from ever being full. This is the very reason you're exhausted and frustrated. And if you're like so many of the women who come to me, somewhere along the way of trying to get enough clients, you started to question yourself, your own worth, because it looks like everyone around you is doing the very same things you're doing. And somehow they're the ones getting more clients and more business. I want you to really hear me here. There's nothing wrong with you. And more was never your problem. The reason you aren't getting the conversations and the interest you deserve from all of your hard work is that you are consciously or subconsciously shrinking. In your networking, in your speaking, and online. Shrinking, you ask? What do I mean by shrinking? Okay, see if this resonates with you. Someone asks you what you do, and you hear yourself say, oh, I run a software company, or I'm a coach, sort of. And you hand the conversation right back to them, and then they keep talking, and it never comes back to you. Or You get up to give a talk, you practice for weeks, and when it's finally time to make your offer, you rush it into the last 2 minutes or you skip it altogether. And then you wonder why people don't actually want to set up conversations with you. Or you post all week and there's no real invitation in any of the posts or calls to actions. Just a lovely thought, inspiration, teaching, and a sort of let me know if this resonates. See, what's happening is you talk about what you do, but because you're nervous or you're shy or you don't want to appear bigger than your britches, you cut out your biggest wins, stories, or you come across as boring, dispassionate, and not inspiring. And often you don't even realize it. All of these are forms of what I call shrinking, retreating, making yourself smaller, getting nervous, or feeling like you have to be humble. And it happens because of deeply rooted patterns that we don't even realize that we're carrying around not being allowed to be seen, around not being allowed to speak up, about being prohibited from asking for what we want. Does any of this sound familiar? Some of those patterns started in childhood, but others can come up from past lives, cultural norms, gender norms, even ancestral patterns. And these patterns create conscious and subconscious rules about not being able to or not being allowed to take up space. And when I say take up space here, I mean physically, verbally, or even emotionally take up space. And then without you realizing it, they make you come across as less confident and less masterful than you are. And they hide just how excellent and masterful you really are. So let me tell you what's actually true. Getting 6 new clients in the next 90 days has almost nothing to do with being seen by more people, especially if you're already out there doing the networking and the speaking and the posting. Now, for those of you that are hiding in your homes, then perhaps getting out there is going to be useful. But even when you get out there, you got to be able to stop shrinking. You see, what it comes down to is letting yourself be fully seen by the people already in front of you. Taking up the verbal space your work deserves, and then actually asking them to work with you. Because the clients are already in your rooms. You just need to create the internal permission to ask for the sale. And this is what I call the permission to ask system. It's how you finally use your voice fully in every room that you're already in, so that all of the visibility you've been working so hard for actually turns into clients. So let me break down how it actually works and why. First, I want to be really clear because this work isn't just about mindset or identity shift. There is a real structure. For those of you that are cognitive, there is a real structure to how you ask people to work with you, to how you make a clear call to action. For example, in my Rise Business Academy, I teach 9 specific parts to making an offer from the stage. And there's a learnable way to tell your story. In the Rise Business Academy, we call it your legendary story at a networking event so that people lean in instead of glazing over. And I teach every single specific piece of it in the Rise Business Academy. So this is not just a believe in yourself and it'll all work out. But there's a piece that's underlying it. Here's what I've also learned after years of doing this work with thousands of women. You can know those structures, the structures that I teach in Rise or the structures that maybe you've learned elsewhere, cold. You can know every step of it and still not use it. Because if your body does not feel allowed to take up space, you will not follow it when the moment comes. You won't follow that structure because your body gets into fear and then you'll ignore everything you thought you were going to do. So permission to ask has to come first. then the structure can carry you. So there are 3 parts to how this system works. Part 1 is permission. Now, this is the inner work, and it's the part that almost everyone wants to skip. Because underneath all of that activity is a quiet, sticky belief that taking up space is somehow wrong. That if you talk about yourself for too long or too passionately, or you dare to mention your wins, you'll come across as arrogant or full of yourself. So you make yourself small. You let the work speak for itself instead of you speaking for yourself. I know this one all the way down because I lived it. A few years ago, I was out for coffee with 3 colleagues, all of them men. And as we went around the table introducing ourselves, I was watching each one of them take up space without a second thought. Each one would say what he did and then tell 2 or 3 stories about his clients and share what he was lit up about right then. Easily, no hesitation, no apology. They just talked. And they did it freely and openly. They were willing to take 10, 15 minutes to talk about themselves and tell their stories. And then it got to me. And I gave the 90-second version of what I do and handed the conversation right back. And I could feel the sting of it. Not a single one of them leaned in or seemed inspired or asked to connect with me afterward. And I realized I had missed my chance to take up space because I had forgotten to give myself permission to ask, permission to tell my stories, and then make a real invitation. They didn't see me because I didn't take up space. Now, I'll be honest with you, for men, taking up space so often comes a lot more easily than it does for us as women. But it doesn't have to stay that way. And for me, so much of this is cultural, and it may be for you too. I grew up a first-generation Indian woman, and I was taught to play small, to stay in the background, to not take up too much room. And to this day, I'm still working with my own instinct to disappear. Many of you may be working with your instincts too. Every single day, I make intentional choices to follow the same 3-step formula I'm giving you right now so that I keep showing up and I keep giving myself permission to take up space. And here's what I know now. That instinct to not say much doesn't only cost me. It costs the person sitting right across from me because they never get to find out how I might have been able to help them. And listen, if you have ever felt yourself go small in a room when it was finally your turn to speak, do me a favor, type "me too" in the comments. Because I want you to see with your own eyes that you're not alone in this, not even close. Because this goes deep, deeper than what you say to yourself. Really, like deeper than just what you say to yourself. I had a client, brilliant at what she does, who spent weeks preparing a talk for a room of 20 women. She practiced every line, and she walked out of that room devastated because out of 20 women, exactly 1 signed up to have a conversation with her. Only 1. And when we sat down together afterward, here's what we found. It was a 60-minute talk, and she had given her offer about 4 minutes. 4 minutes. She had rushed through it, and she didn't really take up the space to tell her story, to tell her client wins, and to really invite people to work with her. In fact, she had practiced every part of that talk except the offer part. She never practiced the offer once. So when she actually got to it in real life, she got nervous, she sped through it, and she didn't get a great result. Let me know in the chat if something like this has ever happened for you. But it was never a knowledge problem for her. She knew the 9 parts of the offer that I teach in my Rise with This Academy. She'd done them before with me. Underneath it was this deep, quiet feeling that she just wasn't allowed to take up that much space. And when we traced it back, we found where it started. When she was little, it wasn't safe for her to speak up. Her father was in the military, and every time she used her voice, she got in trouble for it, real trouble. So her little body learned, long before she ever had a business, that speaking up was dangerous. Stay quiet, stay small, stay safe. No sales script in the entire world was ever going to fix that. We had to go back and find that little girl and heal her. Give her permission to speak up. Let her know that it was safe so that it could finally feel safe for her adult to take up that space. So the permission step is all about going deep to uncover and heal the stories that are making you feel like you can't take up space. It is so powerful. When I work with my clients, I use a process I call rooted healing, where I go all the way down to where the patterns and the stories first began. I look at past lives, other planes, ancestral patterns, family heritage, and cultural beliefs, among a few things. First, we uncover the stories that played out, and then the patterns that they created. Then I work with my clients to release the old unhelpful patterns and structures and to plant new helpful ones in their place. And this is something we do over and over again. That's why I call it rooted healing, because new unhelpful patterns creep up all the time, especially when you're doing new things and taking real risks as a business owner. And it isn't just her or even my clients. Even after I had built a 7-figure business, I still find old patterns living in my own body, and I work on healing them regularly. Okay, so part 1 is permission. Let's move on to part 2, which is the full story. So once you have the permission, this is where you let yourself take up this space verbally. You are allowed to talk, not the 10-second version, the whole thing. So the full story is about speaking all the words, who you help, the real result you create for them, a specific client story told with detail and with heart, and sharing your own excitement about what you're doing in your business right now, taking up the time and space to tell your full story. The way you talk about your work to your best friend over dinner, lit all the way up, not careful and dialed down. In a 60-minute talk, this isn't 4 rush minutes. This is 10, 12, 14 minutes of letting people really feel what is possible for them and asking them to work with you. At a networking event, this is more than I'm a consultant. This is who you help, your past client win, and what's making you excited today. A full 5 to 10 minutes of airtime. And a social media post, this is talking about your last win and then being crystal clear about where they can sign up for your program or a conversation with you and what that conversation could be like for them. And here is what happens when you do and give yourself that full story space. That same client, the one that I just told you about in permission, that same client, the next time she spoke, she did it completely differently. She let herself take up the space. She practiced her offer. She told the full story. She talked about what was possible and why they should choose to work with her. And she made a warm and unhurried invitation. She walked through all 9 parts of the offer I teach in the Rise Business Academy, and she did the whole thing without white knuckling and without fear, because she had befriended the part of her that believed it was unsafe to make an ask. Same woman, same kind of room, same material. There were 18 women in the room this time, and 12 of them booked conversations with her. And then 3 of them signed up in those conversations for a $3,000 program. $9,000 day, all because she gave herself room to clean up that story about her little girl who wasn't allowed to speak, to heal it, to put in new patterns. And that opened up for her the possibility to follow the structure in that talk. The only thing that changed was that she finally let herself take up the space because she healed the part of herself that believed it wasn't safe. It's a beautiful thing. So let's move on to part 3, which is the invitation. So here's the difference between the full story and the invitation. The full story is what makes someone want what you do. The invitation is what tells them exactly what to do next. So that full story is where you share your stories, your excitement, what you're up to, your client wins, etc. And then the invitation is the actual call to action of what they do next. And here's the piece that almost nobody understands about the invitation. Most people treat it like the awkward salesy part, something separate from everything else, tacked on at the very end. So they rush it, they soften it, they make it vague. Reach out to me if you're interested, or let me know and we'll set up a talk. And then they wonder why no one ever follows through. That the invitation was never the salesy part. It's actually the most generous part that you could offer to somebody. Because when you make the invitation, you're actually being generous with the gift of yourself and your time. And here's what I believe is the key to a real invitation. It has to be specific. It has to be warm. And it has to come from permission. Specific means you give them one clear next step and you say that out loud. Not 3 options, not find me online, one clear door. Book a conversation with me this week. Or let's get out our phones so we can make a time to talk. And really getting out your phones and doing that in that moment. And coming from permission means you're not making that ask from fear or from need, quietly hoping they'll say yes. You're making it from a place of safety in your own body. So it lands as an invitation and not a plea. That's the difference people can feel even when they can't name it. And that healing work that I do with my clients, that really opens up that feeling of it being an invitation and not a plea. The exact same words spoken by a woman who has given herself permission land completely different than they do when they're rushed and apologetic. So the invitation is really just this: one clear next step said warmly, without apology, as the very next breath after your story. At the networking event, it would be, I would love to keep talking. Can we set up a conversation this week? At the end of your talk, it would be one clear, unhurried next step. So telling people where they can sign up for a conversation with you, telling them exactly how they fill out the form to buy something from you. And your post, one real call to action, not buried, not whispered, not rushed. And here is why this whole thing works faster than more visibility ever will. Your clients are already in the rooms that you are already in. You don't necessarily need a bigger audience. You don't need another funnel. The moment you stop shrinking, the moment you give yourself permission to tell the full story and make the invitation, all of that work that you're already doing finally starts turning into clients. Just like it did for my client who went from generating one conversation in a room to generating many conversations from a room. None of this is doing more. It's letting yourself be fully seen in the space that you are already standing in. Now, in case you and I haven't met, just let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Monica Shah. I'm a business strategist and a healer, and I help women coaches, consultants, and other client-based business owners grow their businesses without burning out and without sacrificing their health, their families, or themselves. I've been doing this work for more than 15 years, and if there's one thing I know for sure, it is this: the woman who struggles to sign clients are never the ones who need to be more visible or doing more. They're the ones who haven't yet given themselves permission to take up the space of the rooms that they're already in. And this is just one piece of something so much bigger. So this is part of what I call my revenue breakthrough methodology. This methodology is built on 3 pillars. The first pillar is phased revenue architecture. That's doing the right things in the right order so that your time and your energy actually give you a return instead of getting scattered across 100 different directions. The second pillar is soulful, sustainable momentum. That's running your business at the pace and the rhythm and the season that you are actually in so that you stop wearing yourself out. And the third is the capacity to receive. That is clearing the blocks around asking for money and being visible and around receiving support, and really being able to receive all the things. And the permission to ask system lives under the capacity to receive pillar. Because for so many of us as women, we simply don't feel allowed to take up the space, to take up space. And then we don't feel like we're allowed to receive because of it. It's one of the most common and one of the most freeing to finally heal. So if you're ready to find and heal the underlying story that's been keeping you from taking up space and making the ask so that you can sign 6 new clients in the next 90 days from the rooms that you're already walking into, here is your next step. Book a conversation with me. Here's what we'll actually do together on that call. We'll look at where you're shrinking and what it's been costing you. I'll help you find the specific story underneath it, the one that's keeping you from taking up space and asking. And I'll show you exactly how my rooted healing process and the permission to ask system can make it safe for you to use your voice so you can start turning the rooms you're already in into clients. And if it feels like the right fit for both of us, I'll walk you through exactly how we can work together to make it happen. Because when I sit with someone, I can usually see the blocks right away, the thing that's keeping them from receiving more. Sometimes it's a wound from this life. Sometimes it's older than that and even from a past life. Sometimes it's a story you inherited from your family or your culture. And sometimes it's just a lifelong habit of making yourself small. Whatever it is, we can name it and we can begin to heal it so that taking up space finally feels safe. So if you're ready to stop leaving clients in the room and money on the table, the link is right around this video. Just click on the link to set up a conversation with me. And if a conversation doesn't feel like the right fit yet, I have something else for you. You can come watch my free masterclass, your next 100K offer, where I'll show you how to build an offer that can bring in $100,000 so that you can have something powerful and clear to take up space for. That link is also around this video and in the description. And if something shifted in you today and you're sitting there realizing that you don't need to do more, you just need to stop making yourself small, do me a favor and share this with a woman in your life who needs to hear it as well. And subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because the clients are already in your room. You just have to give yourself permission to take up space and to ask.